kule kwa Njuguna, unakunywa pombe, unakula nyama, this stomach of yours inafura, unaanza kutoa ile inanuka vibaya sana. You are not loving yourself. Let me ask you finally, and I'll stop. Look at your heart. Ask Mr. Heart, wewe bwana Heart, hali yako ya kiafya ikoje? When is the last time I gave you exercise, wewe bwana Heart? The point that I am making, all those wonderful children we are talking about here, and this is counterintuitive, you will only look after them in the long run when you have a feel of what is happening within yourself. Mubiriko hapa. What is the extent of your relationship with whatever you call God? What kind of human being are you? Let me tell you, Bonaleto, finally, hawa watu ambao wanajitoa uhai na wengine, they lack this kind of connection, among many other things. Take away from me today, for goodness sake, if you want to love others, first, love thyself.
So, Daktari, you confirm that loving yourself is not being selfish.
Loving yourself is loving others. Love yourself first. I've just come from an aeroplane.
Yes.
Every time you go into an aeroplane, Nambiwa, fit in your own mask first,
yes,
before you can help those you love the most. Look after yourself first. Then you can help your wife, you can help your children, you can help your neighbor. Na maendeleo ni mzuri.
It's as simple as that. You cannot be or claim to be an expert of anything if you are an expert of nothing. So you have to learn to love yourself so that you can reciprocate. That's what I'm getting from Daktari.
In fact,
yes,
I could even add, the Bible says, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. So really, you can only love others to the degree that you love yourself. And just a quick one to add there about fatherhood. We're talking more about the giving seed, the sperm that produces a baby eventually. But being a therapist, every day I'm dealing with people who have father issues, daddy issues. And it's not about who gave seed or not. It's about social. I needed someone to claim me, someone to teach me. We're talking about masculinity being a challenge. But according to me, the one very important factor of masculinity tomorrow is fatherhood today, which is not about seed. It's about playing with this child, talking to this child, spending time with this child. So I think it's for us to go to a higher level of fatherhood, realizing fatherhood is not about biology, it's really about commitment in many other ways. If we don't raise up the boys today, then tomorrow we're going to have a challenge. We'll need many more men's conferences because the fathers were not there to prepare the boys to be the men they need to be.
100, correct. And that is the same thing I was trying to bring to the fourth, because our issues are deeper. The reason why we have weaker men, the reason we have people are claiming that we've stopped being lions is because no one showed you how to be a lion. If you've never known or even seen a lion or even understand the capabilities of a lion, it doesn't matter how many times I will call you a lion, you'll never become a lion. And that brings me to the second part of this particular conversation. And then if you have any question, I just need to raise your hand. A microphone will be brought to you. So Leto is ready, but hold on. I need to speak to Ian and Chris. Because you see, hapa tuko na daktari, na tuko na pastor who also doubles up as a psychiatrist. These are just normal men like me here. You are just giants of the industry. Do you believe, going back to the question that Leto posed in the issue of domestic, domestic issues in relationships and issues suicide, when we discuss issue of you loving yourself first and all that, and going with what we've just heard from the two gentlemen, does it bring it back home to the biggest mental health issue that is really that we're really struggling to understand or even know for the many men that young men and older men who are here? Because majority of the things that Kenyans do, we do what we know, what we hear. New things come in, it becomes a trend. Before it affects us completely, before it has ruined, families, is when people now wake up to realize. So what is your take on mental health? And what aspect of mental health, or what does mental health do to our society as we stand right now in terms of how men relate to our women, or our girls and our boy child? Please.
Personally, when I was growing up, I never knew what mental health is at all, by the way. So these things of someone is depressed, someone is not well, I want to credit him because I don't know that he remembers me. There was a day we used to do Miss World Kenya here, and he will be called and we'll meet and then we'll speak about these things. I don't think there was Google then, and there was nobody to speak to me about depression. So nilikuwa najisort tu. You sit, I think I developed ulcers, I hated people, loved some, I developed suicide tendencies. There was a time I planned to kill someone. Tunaongea.
Hey.
Yeah, seriously, by the way.
Yes.
But outside, when you meet people, you will show brave. Because through the rite of passage where I come from, we are taught to be men and not to show emotion, not to show weakness. Until I met this man. Yes, Dr. Frank Njenga. I was actually excited when I heard you coming. Because that's when I started beginning my journey into understanding what mental health is. Mimi nilikuwa najua kama una kinonda ama tumbo hayumi ama hautapiki, you're okay. So even you guys that are seated here, how many of you really understand what mental health is? Mimi nazisikianga tu. And then when you try to speak about mental health, when you're with your boy squad, you look like a weakling. Umechizi nini mbaya na wewe? Kunywa beer mazee, acha story mob. So I used to be offered beer every time I tried saying sisikii poa. So guys will be like tukupeleke hosi ama. Then I say hapana, nasikia tu siko sawa, wewe fanya hivi. Piga tot mbili mazee alafu kae poa. So I did a lot of thoughts. I did a lot of beer. Tulipiga bangi kidogo at some point in our life. But did it help? No. And it was until years later, after it had affected me very badly at some point because of drinking, my liver ikaanza kuwa na story. Stopped drinking 12 years ago, lakini saa zingine pia pressure, nikikutana na mtu anakunywa napata nimekunywa kidogo alafu naacha. So there is all that. So these kind of forums are very important because they didn't exist. What existed was that rite of passage, 3, 6 months, whatever, depending on where you went, for those who went. And then after that, boom, you're thrown into the world. Is there anything that you know?
Nothing.
For 15 years, I wasn't going to church. I was angry because my mom passed away and I was thinking, what's wrong with you, God? This is the only mom I have. Me, I don't have brothers, sisters, all those things. Sinanga. So my mom passed away. Nikaangalia God, nikashindwa nini mbaya na wewe. And I left. I left church for 15 years. Sikurudi. Nilirudi juzi. So within that blank, your period, you're actually on your own.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's why you will think of killing yourself, thinking of killing someone who has messed you up, those kind of things.
And that is mental health right there.
That's mental health.
Yes, that is
mental health. Your story.
When it comes to mental health, the ladies, the girls are in a better position than we are. More men, more boys commit suicide than ladies. Because girls, ladies, they have got support systems. Men do not. They've been brought up to know that they can't show their feelings. So they hold things together. And then it is that last straw that breaks the camel's back and somebody ends up committing suicide because they've got nobody to turn to. It's a high time we understood as men, there is nothing wrong with asking for help. But you need to ask the right people. Don't ask your boys who will tell you, that is something small, forget about it, have a drink. No. We need to take mental health in this country very, very seriously. And it needs to be completely free, especially even just for men. Have clinics where men can go and talk to somebody. Because You'll be amazed at how much healing there is when you've told your problems to somebody. Many a times they're not even, if they're good, they will get you to give the solution. You're not going there for them to tell you what to do. It's to guide you. It's to listen to you. And what do you think you should do? And if you do this, what are the consequences? So we need to take mental health very clearly. We need to understand there's absolutely nothing wrong with a man crying.
Yes.
We have emotions.
Yes.
If you're feeling bad, go ahead and cry.
Correct.
Yes.
Hapo kwa crying, please try and cry when it's raining, so people don't notice the difference.
Anyway, just two questions before now we hear from the two professionals in matters related to mental health. Tafadhali, Leto, check. Peleka nyuma, kuna jamaa wameinua mikono huko vizuri sana. Kama tuanze na wewe tu. Can I ask a question and then you can answer? Okay. Okay. Please say your name, where you're from. Haraka haraka ndio tujue.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Victor Hamisi. I champion an initiative that is called Check on a Man, because when I lost my parents, I was housed by an uncle who dragged me and raped me. Then I was a street boy for 5 years. So, 6 suicide attempt, and I'm championing to see men being able to speak what they go through. And I usually say that crying does not demean or make you less a man. Yep. And it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay for you as a man to keep quiet and die silently. So I want to ask 3 questions to Chris Kirubi, because I've met him.
Oh, sorry. That is deceased. This is Chris.
No, sorry. Chris Kirubi, sorry. Sorry. Sorry, yeah, thanks. Number one, I want to ask Kirwa one question. As a man, how do you brand yourself to be a brand? Because a lot of young men, they meet people. I've met you several times. There are times you may push, but ningependa you tell us, how as a man can you brand yourself to be a good brand? That you do not need to introduce yourself, but your name will introduce you. Yep. And on the same question, to you only, how can we tell young men to be patient? Because a lot of men want quick things. Anataka kuamka leo kuwa na Range Rover, atoke Mathare, kesho kuwe Karen. How can we dunga wanaume na syringe ya ujue kwamba life is process kama hiyo stairs? Number 2, I want to ask to a fellow counselor. One of the worst things that is happening today is that a lot of men do not know that crying is a therapy. Yep. Many men do not know that you opening up and sharing what you go through, in fact, gives you the healing more than you kunyamazia. I'll give you an example with myself. I tried to commit suicide 6 times when I was a street boy. I used to wash clothes for a living. I did man enough through movie. And at the end of the day, I'm not where I was, but I'm not where I want to be, but at least siko mali nilikuwa. What can we do to sensitize in terms of, badala ya kukutana place, upewe pombe, ukunywe ulewe, ubaki hapo, we can meet and discuss what we go through as men, and atuchukua kama a weapon to wait you when you're above, umerise, when you sharp rise, and then you use it to bring you down. Because one of the worst weapon that men bring down is us men ourselves. Yep. Ukiona shafi amepostiwa mahali amefanya kitu, you start using that to bring him down. To movie. I would say it religion. I respect the choice of faith. I do not respect religion at all. I respect the choice of faith, because binguni ni ya Mungu, ni hata mwanana taingia. Yep. And I usually say that God transacts with us on the basis of faith, not religion, because religion is man-made for self-beneficiary for men. Yep. What can we do? Yakwamba, as a man, you'll meet your fellow man, Muhammad, and respect his choice of faith, and tell him, I want you to groom your child to read the Quran to be in heart, and I want you to tell Victor, Victor's son, to be able to read the Bible and the word to be in his heart, so that these are all avenues of word meeting God. What can we do to sensitize Yakwamba? We respect each other's choice of faith. Thank you so much.
Asante sana. We have very many questions, so I'll have to just ask you to give me a second. let the panelists respond. I will start with Daktari. And remember, his question was...
Please don't switch our mics off, please.
Just let the mics on, guys. Anyway.
Okay. Let me, for the sake of emphasis,
Yes.
explain my earlier position. The question of suicide is terribly important. And I want to correct my brother here. People commit adultery. People commit crimes. People die by suicide. Okay? Because feeling so desperately hopeless that you feel you would be better off in the next world is 90% of the time the result of a mental illness. And therefore, you don't commit diabetes, you don't commit hypertension, you die by hypertensive stroke, and so on and so on. So let's get that one clear first and foremost.
Let's get it. Yes.
The second thing I'll say very quickly is that the best predictor that a person will actually die by suicide is one previous attempt. So if you hear your sister, your cousin has attempted suicide once, for goodness sake, take them to a competent, qualified person with training on how to look after people with suicidal thoughts. The chances are they will be diagnosed either with bipolar disorder, major depressive illness, obsessive compulsive disorder, some form of treatable mental illness. And the final thing I want to say, I said earlier, I was happy to be here, not excited. I haven't changed completely from that position, but I'm happy to report. I've been around this business of mental health for almost 45 years now. That's why I'm retired, mostly. This conversation is one of a kind on the continent of Africa. There is no other African country that will have experts like these ones here talk to us about their personal mental health and well-being. There is no way you will hear people stand there and talk about their own attempt at suicide in the way that we are doing this. What is the point? We are known as Kenyans as marathon runners. This conversation about mental health is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So long after I've gone to be with Abraham, this conversation will continue. But it is moving at the right direction and the right pace. Don't worry about where we are going. Be happy and grateful that we are moving in the right direction. As Chris says, 20 years ago, this wouldn't find a conversation anywhere. It was almost a sin to talk about mental health. Now, anywhere, even in the bar when you're drinking pombe, whatever. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's go to Pastor. Well, I'll get to you, Chris, because he mentioned faith and religion.
Yeah, I think I agree with him. He made a statement more than a question. That faith is our relationship with God. Religion is the industry around it. And I think what is important is how we relate with God, all of us here. And if we relate with God in a certain way, we should respect others. I think all religions that are worth their salt, then they ask people to respect others. They may want to tell them what they believe in, but they respect them. And so I would respect anyone else. And answering you out and talking about mental health, and you mentioned Man Enough. 45,000 men now have done Man Enough. And I think why men have come to that program is not because it's greater than any other program, but it's the invitation of men to come together in a circle and begin to talk about their issues. I talk about ABCD very quickly. A is one of the reasons why we get a lot of stress, we cheer a lot of stress as men, is because we don't admit our problems. We live in denial. You know there's an issue, you don't want to admit it, you want to look like you're with it, you're strong enough, you can handle it, you don't want to admit. I think when we don't meet our challenges, then we set ourselves up to fail and fail badly. So A is admission. B is boldly facing that problem. If there's something we need to deal with, money or a woman or something else, if we don't sit down and begin to deal with that problem, it will trouble us because we're not facing it. We're running away from it. We're not facing the issue. C is community. Community. And that's why I love this. You know, congratulations to all the men who organized this, all that we have had. Community. The fact that we can get together and talk about issues. A man is made a man among other men. That's what I believe. You can never be a man alone, never walk alone. Whatever fan of a soccer team you are. Never walk alone, whether you're Arsenal or Man U. Never just walk alone. You need other men around you. You need to work with other men. Community is very important. That you have some people you relate with, you talk with, and you're vulnerable with. And where necessary, cry with, so that you may deal with the issues. Lastly, is depend on God. I think for me as a Christian, when things get tough, I bring it to God in prayer. And that gives me a certain relief that almost nothing else can give me. So A, B, C, D, admit your challenges as a man. It doesn't make you weaker. B, boldly face those issues. Don't sidestep them or circumvent them. Just face them and deal with them. C, make sure you're not walking alone. You have a community around you. And D, depend on God. And I believe as we do that, we're going to be healthier as men and be able to contribute to the welfare of the society.
Okay. I just want to bring it to one of our partners here from AAR. You want to discuss matters mental health? Leto, microphone? One question. Okay, ask your question then, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, my name is John Parit. I come from Loitoktok. I'm very grateful for this conference. We were just doing our men's conference this morning, yesterday, and I'm glad to see Wale here. He was beaming it live during the 1 o'clock news. I just have two questions, if you allow me. One is, I want to direct it to Dr. Frank Njenga. Recently, we've been watching the news, and within this country, we've been seeing a huge number of young men who have gone into drugs and drugs abuse. And I know this is a huge problem in our country right now, because as they abuse drugs, we have less and less of them. We've seen women demonstrating because they cannot bear children. I wonder how you can help us to help the fellow men in terms of how we can be able to combat drug addiction, especially among men. My second question will go to Pastor, the issue of fatherhood, which is related. As more and more young men and men actually use drugs, then there are very few and less children getting born. And I think that has really affected even the perception and the father figure that is in the society within our country here. We have less. There are some schools that right now, as we are talking, there are very few students coming into the school because no children are getting born. And that's why, because men are not doing their work. I wonder how you can advise the men in this country in that regard. Thank you very much.
Okay. Just let him make his comment, and as you're getting ready to do that, we'll get back to definitely Daktari. You had his question, and also on the issue of population, and the issue of growth, and the issue of the next generation, which is also a very, very big problem that is facing this country. You know, you've had in the news before, and Saleh can confirm, we have had stories of women taking charge to go and remove men from bars, and also they've raided, watering holes where men frequent, and because they want their men home, but whether it's for them to have the voting numbers increase or not, that is a very, a challenging question that you've placed there. Hello, sir. What's your name and where are you from?
Thank you. My name is Fred Nanchabera. I come from Kist.
Okay.
And then I'm glad we're here discussing about men, because when I look at this audience, most of us here are young, below 35 years.
Yes.
Now, my question is, when we talk of mental health, what's the cost of mental health? That's number one. Because mostly, if you give each one of us mic, they will tell you, I have tried to commit suicide. Why? You realize either there's a financial constraint somewhere, there's no breakthrough, or there's something going amiss somewhere in this young man's life.
Okay.
And that's why I had one of the speakers saying, most of our young men are kept by women. I'm still saying so. But it is true. Out here, you find young men being kept by women because they can't sustain themselves.
Okay.
Now, as life coaches, at what time do you learn that this young man is going to an extent of killing himself? At what point do you realize that this young man has hit a point of losing hope in life? Two, Dr. Njenga. At what point do we learn, like, I need to see you? At what time do I need to realize that at this time I need to see a doctor to assist me?
Okay.
Lastly, I request the life coaches here increase these forums of encouraging the young people, us now, on how fast to be independent. Because that is the cause of what will cause us to have wrong thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with the Daktari, then go to Pastor.
Okay, now,
Let's pay attention, guys. Let's pay attention.
okay. The reason I'm standing up is simply because other than smoking cigarette, the next thing that will likely to kill you is the chair you're sitting on. Too many people are dying of lifestyle diseases, hypertension, diabetes, because they don't walk around like I am doing now. So if you want to be dead, continue sitting. If you want to be alive, once every hour at the very least, get up. Yes, walk around a little bit and then sit. And this is serious advice. Even in your office, every hour get up, take a few steps. Why is this so important? It is important for a number of reasons. The first reason is that you can't divide the body from the mind. Your mind and the body are interlinked and intertwined. If you have bad physical health, you will have bad mental health. A lot of people think that the reason you do exercise is so that you are fit physically, which is also true. But more than physical fitness is mental fitness. And if I leave you with nothing else today, let me leave you with the most important thing I can leave you with, which is a very strong recommendation to men even under the age of 35. As you probably already know, this is the same body you will have at the age of 72 like mine. Yes? If you don't look after it now, itakuwa imezeeka, imebondwa bondwa, itakuwa ni kitu hakuna. The day to start exercise is yesterday. If you couldn't start yesterday, start today. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second point I want to make is regarding the increasing prevalence of drug and substance use. Anybody who tells you they know one reason why this problem is there is either a genius, which I am not, or an idiot, which I'm not either. What is the correct answer? The correct answer is we don't know. But we can speculate. One of the available avenues for speculation is to state that in societies that are well knit and well bound to each other, in societies that are cohesive socially, the rates of drug and substance abuse are less common than in situations where social cohesion is absent. So, the question you're asking is, why is it that our society is becoming less cohesive? Why is it that our country now, our people, not just in Kenya, but in many parts of the world, selfishness, ubinafsi, umekuwa ni wa hali ya juu? So one of the many reasons is that one. The second reason, which is actually a very interesting one, is availability. You see, if you live in a country where there is no alcohol, you cannot be an alcoholic because it's not there. If you live in a country where there is no bangi, how can you become a bangi addict? It's not there. If you live next door to a person who's brewing changa, and it's very cheap, then the chances of consuming it is higher, and so on. And thirdly, and this is also very important, and I'll keep saying there are many different reasons. Mental disorders. We know, for example, that people with, say, depression or schizophrenia or bipolar mood disorder are more likely to abuse alcohol and drugs than those people who are not. But we also know that if you abuse drugs, the likelihood of developing a mental disorder is also that much higher. So it's a bidirectional movement. You have a mental illness, you use drugs, you get a mental illness. Let me stop there because it's a good place to stop. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
It's Mameni Kidogo.
Mameni is Mameni Tafadhali. You've been seated for too long.
Yeah.
If you want to leave.
Yeah. Kidogo. Asanteni.
Stretch Kidogo.
Thank you.
Anyway, so we'll go to Pastor. And I would like you to touch on one of the questions that was asked in relation to, men failing in their duties as fatherhood. Yes.
That's a good question, and I'll answer that, and you'll allow me to run as well. But just want to say, guys, we are powerful people. Sometimes we don't even know it. But as a man, you are very powerful. Of course, you give sperm that produces a baby. But beyond that, life is about relationships. Relationships are the substance of life. And this is what happens. When we don't realize how powerful we are, then we get to affect other people unknowingly. There's a woman that you relate with who could go for a week in depression. Well, not depression in the clinical sense, but, a lot of stress because of choices you made as a man to do something or not to do something. There's a child who will choose to go to drugs as a way of trying to deal with their issues because of a father who is not involved in their lives. I met a young man from two students here in Nairobi who told me this. He had been caught with marijuana on his desk. And then he was sent home. And when he came back, I was invited to talk to him. So I asked him, man, that's not what you do. If you're smoking this thing, you hide it at least. You don't put it on top of your desk. He said, it's because I wanted to be caught. I asked him, why did you want to be caught? He said, my daddy never is involved in my life. He never asks me how school is. He never talks to me. So I said, let me do something really stupid so that dad may get so annoyed, he'll have to beat me up and then talk to me in the process. Then I'll know that he cares about me. I asked him, did you succeed? He said, I did not. I got a letter of suspension, went home, timed when my mother was away, gave it to my daddy, and my daddy looked at it, looked at me, looked at it, and said, wait until your mother comes. And when my mother came, he gave a letter to the mother and said, deal with your stupid boy. And the boy told me, I now live as if my father is dead. From 2-year-old boy, saying, I've given up on my daddy. So when we talk about you as men, you carry a lot of privilege, a lot of power, a lot.
What is it?
Something
is different. The children, they have the ability to see.
Check it out. Arthur is talking to the fish.
Fathers, as baby daddies, whoever we are, and we need to use our manly power in a way to bless others. I'll quote George Bush Sr. in his inaugural address. This is what he said, whether he practiced